The second Spider-Man Brand New Day trailer is finally out, and it leaves us with almost as many questions as the last one. Like, for example, who the hell is this guy? Anyway, we open with Spidey fighting Matt Gargan, Scorpion, finally paying off that homecoming post-credit, and like we saw in the first trailer, he's clearly not in prison anymore. Plus, that epic suit we now get to enjoy a bit more. By the way, we still don't know who's the one sponsoring all this new suits. There are people tying it to Oscorp, but Norman back in No Way Home made it pretty clear there's no Oscorp in Earth 616, and even though 4 years have passed, I really doubt that's enough time. Maybe Roxxon? We did hear about them in Wonder Man. Personally, I'd argue that at least in Scorpion's case, it must be J. Jonah Jameson, the journalist. He hates Spider-Man, and in the comics, he literally funded that villain's creation. So actually, if you think about it, it's not that crazy, and we would enjoy some J. Jonah Jameson background. Anyway, we see Peter running into trouble in this fight, and we'd actually already seen Scorpion sting him back in the first trailer. And let's be honest, it's not that he needs some power-up to beat Scorpion, but we all know Peter tends to hold his own power back. In this second trailer, they show us that halfway through the fight, the eyes under the mask turn black, and that's when Peter stops holding back, wrecking Gargan while admitting he's completely out of control. Probably some side effect of Scorpion's venom, or of whatever it is that Sadie Sink's character actually does in this movie. We cut to Peter slumped on the couch, beat up, watching another Ned livestream. In the first trailer, they celebrated getting into MIT. In this one, Ned actually says they are on their last semester, and that's why for me, a lot of these trailers are the very beginning of the movie and little more. 4 years of Peter guarding the city alone while we watch him stalk his friends in between to remember what he's fighting for. And that's exactly where all these villains come in. Boomerang, Tarantula, maybe one we haven't seen yet, and even the Hand, which I insist can't possibly be the main event the way the first trailer sold it, but we'll talk about that later. For me, it's like Fantastic Four, where they recap the team's first steps in just a few minutes, although if that's the case, we still have no idea who the real big bad of this movie even is. And once that recap is done, we get into the whole mutation/evolution arc. Anyway, Peter throws on his web shooters and they fly right off. Yep. Organic webbing, exactly like Toby. We'd guessed it back in the first trailer, but now it's straight up confirmed. The only thing left to figure out is whether it's self-contained to this movie or not. The comic parallel here could be when he gets organic webbing after the Queen's kiss, and also the other, where after nearly dying, we watch Peter get reborn out of a cocoon, coming back much stronger. Though now he's forced to face that spider side of himself that he just can't ignore anymore. That said, in the comics, he ends up going back to the web shooters, funnily enough, right around the Brand New Day arc. Back to the trailer. Peter meets Bruce Banner, the specialist at not becoming what he doesn't want to be. Bruce shows him his gamma suppressor, different by the way from the She-Hulk one, and they're throwing the word mutation around so casually that it's almost undeniable they're setting the whole thing up for X-Men. Anyway, Banner, joking, tells him he'd better run the day he ever sees him without this device on his arm, and Peter laughs, kind of nervously. And here's my long shot. This scene takes place after a first encounter. Just let me explain. When Peter goes out looking for Hulk, he still has the mechanical web shooters on him. So assuming this isn't made to fool us, it has to take place before the mutation. We actually saw Damage Control scan Peter during the first trailer, web shooters and all. My theory is that for some reason, Hulk reverts back to his savage form. Maybe it's Jean Grey's doing, and Peter is the only one around who can help. I mean, at some point, they straight up ask him for help tracking down Jean Grey, so clearly they are working together. We even get to see Peter using Damage Control tech to track Jean's powers jumping from one person to another. All that said, please don't make me start on where on earth the new Avengers are supposed to be during an apparently Omega-level threat, because, well, Marvel. So to recap, when Banner brings up that suppressor, for me, Peter laughs because he's already faced him, and even that web explosion in the trailer would fit a device he builds to stop Hulk, set off by accident while gearing up. Which is why, right after this gorgeous thunderclap we haven't seen in forever, this doesn't count. We see Hulk completely tangled up in the very webbing Peter had been testing out in that alley. And maybe this other scene where the device actually breaks is a second encounter closer to the end. In fact, splitting hairs even further, Hulk could leave him right at death's door, which pushes him into the cocoon to heal. Yeah, I'm reaching, I know, but what if though? Moving on with the trailer, we see a shockwave that visually looks an awful lot like Sue Storm's powers. We're assuming it comes from Jean Grey, fed up with being locked away in what we believe are Damage Control's facilities, and instantly that psychic blast freezes an entire crowd exactly like Charles Xavier used to do in X-Men 2, which is why almost nobody doubts anymore that Sadie Sink is Jean Grey. In fact, it actually seems to avoid affecting Frank Castle, so it's not just powerful, it's controlled too. Because I don't think Frank's immune, that wouldn't make sense. But someone who is Peter. Damage Control's words, not mine, most likely thanks to his spider sense, like what we saw in No Way Home. But where does Jean even come from? Maybe it ties back to the events of WandaVision, which we thought hadn't carried over that much until we saw Billy, Wanda's son, sort of hold on to his mutation in Agatha all along. A whole town hit with such insane magic that, as we know, can awaken things in people. And taking into account which universe Monica Rambeau end up in after the Marvels, it really wouldn't be crazy. And if you think about it, before Doomsday, we've still got Vision Quest, which could even dig a bit deeper into mutants, so it becomes plausible. And if damage control tracks people by their radiation signature, and mutants happen to give off that exact signature, we could be seeing the first traces of the comics' anti-mutant hunt in a Spider-Man movie. So we go back to that MIT party scene where Peter spots MJ's supposed new boyfriend, and careful, that thing right there isn't Boomerang's helmet. The guy I wanted to be named Paul better not turn out to be Fred Myers. I mean, for whatever reason, Peter ends up leaping off this building in the exact same clothes he was wearing in that scene. A little drastic to just a little heartbreak, right? Once again, they show us Ned's wall piecing together clues to crack Spidey's secret identity. And we move on to, in theory, Jean talking to Peter through other people, asking him whether he's managed to calm that inner monster yet, and threatening very casually to go pay MJ a little visit, which is maybe why we get this scene of Peter coming in through MJ's window and then later leaving her somewhere safe with Frank. Which, by the way, this movie also has to settle for us when exactly these two first met, because the last thing we know about Punisher before his special is that he wasn't even able to be there to help stop Fisk alongside Karen and Matt. And in Punisher's One Last Kill, way far from meeting Spider-Man like some of us had ever hoped, things went in a completely different direction. After he's done losing it and tearing through a whole bunch of people, he kind of finds his path in this world, honestly, by writer's magic, and fully takes on his anti-hero-ish role, though he's still as bloodthirsty as ever. And on top of that, this movie shows us he's not only going to do a little babysitting on Spidey, he's even going to let MJ lecture him. So we really need some explanations on what Punisher's real role in this movie will be, don't we? Now then, let's talk about the prison, Daredevil, and the Hand. In this shot, Peter has his mask on and the mechanical web shooters, but in the first trailer shot, he didn't have them and he was unmasked. Meaning this would be the start of the fight and the old shot the end, once they've unmasked him and he lets the spider out. But why exactly is Peter in prison? And what does the Hand even have to do with all this? The ninjas don't quite line up with everything else in the trailer. And Daredevil, is he even planning to show up? Remember, Matt's locked up at the end of Born Again 2 after telling the world he is in fact the devil of Hell's Kitchen. And these two know each other, so maybe if the Hand tried to go after Murdoch in prison as a direct consequence of him revealing his identity and taking advantage of him being in such a vulnerable spot, Spidey could be the one who's there to help him out. I can even picture Peter offering to help him break out, and Matt, being the guilt-ridden Matt that he is, choosing instead to serve out his sentence purely on principle. I mean, the actors kind of let it slip that we're gonna see them all bearded and worn down in Born Again 3, so if he does show up, I seriously doubt he escapes. We see Peter slip back into alien mode and take down the Hand in a matter of seconds, which, by the way, even though Venom got mostly ruled out for now, we've still got that pending No Way Home post-credit scene. Who knows, with a little luck, they pick it right back up in this movie's post-credit. And if I'm allowed to ask for things here, since I absolutely refuse to watch this Flash become Venom, or even worse, Agent Venom, and since I seriously doubt they're gonna hand us a brand new Eddie Brock right now, is it really too much to ask for the Chad Venom Gargan as the very first official host of 616? It'd be a real chance at a Venom a bit more hostile than the one Sony's gotten us used to. I mean, Gargan's definitely gonna want revenge after this humiliation, right? Anyway, after a little kiss to Aunt May's grave, we close things out with a little joke, Peter getting ready to take on these guards in order to break into who knows where for now. But considering that the whole damage control crew doesn't sit right with me at all, for me, Peter starts the movie convinced he's helping the good guys, stopping Hulk, hunting down Jean, and at some point he realizes the good guys were the bad guys, and he ends up on the side of the ones he was supposed to stop, which honestly is the most classic Spider-Man story that there is. Don't forget to leave your like, and if you're not subscribed, hey, don't worry about it. You'll just end up missing the full recap of the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe that we're putting out before this movie hits theaters.